And that was your look at the daily interbank FX rates from the Bank of Ghana. Let's talk about fuel to begin with this afternoon. More oil marketing firms are expected to review prices of petroleum products downwards today after the bulk oil distributors adjusted prices of finished petroleum products. Some leading market players, Total Energies and Kwawu, have already slashed prices of fuel at the pumps. The reduction in prices of petroleum products could compel transport operators to delay the agitations for increase in transport fares. It could also help contain rising cost of living. Meantime, as in a related development, oil marketing companies are at risk of having the operations shut down soon by the National Petroleum Authority. The firms in question failed to advance millions of cedis collected on behalf of the authority since December last year. Georgia Afe has been following the story for us.
Sources say these are funds that the oil marketing companies have collected through the primary distribution margin. That is, any time they sell a litre of petroleum products at their service stations. These debts Joy Business understands is from December last year to April 2022. The National Petroleum Authority in the notice have announced that it will initiate legal action against these firms if they fail to settle these debts by August 4, 2022. For some, the development again may expose the challenges that a lot of the oil marketing companies are going through, as a lot are struggling to deal with competition in the sector. It has also exposed the serious inefficiencies with some of the oil marketing companies that were in the past used to government subsidy program. This has reignited calls for the National Petroleum Authority to review its licensing requirement. The move by the regulators coming on the back of a recent action by the Ghana Revenue Authority that had to turn to the court to also recover some taxes owed by these firms. This development could back claims that the oil marketing industry is not that lucrative in terms of being assured of those super profits, as rising prices of petroleum products at the pumps is hitting hard at consumption, resulting in reduced earnings for these marketing companies.
Well, Communications Manager at the National Petroleum Authority, Mohammed Abdul Kudus, joins us on Zoom for more on this. Grateful you could join us this afternoon, sir. For how long has this been going on, and why is it difficult for the OMCs to advance monies collected on your behalf? Is it deliberate?
Thank you very much for having me. Let me say good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to all those who are viewing it this afternoon. So there is a certain process for the payment of this particular margin that we're talking about. So when you collect it as an OMC at the pump, as you rightly put it, it is part of the price build-up. So when the OMC pays it, you have a minimum of a month, roughly about 45 days that you're supposed to come retire it with the authority. And some of the OMCs have defaulted, and the authority has resolved to go after them to make sure that these monies are collected, because the monies are for good reason. And if the monies are not collected and put to use for which they are supposed to be, we could have disturbances in the distribution of fuel across the country. And this is the reason why the authority is coming after all those who have defaulted for this while.
Well, I'm trying to make an explanation for the OMCs. We understand they are facing difficulties. They are really struggling to run the operations at this point. Could that be a factor?
Absolutely not, because as part of the price buildup, there's a margin that is supposed to go to the OMC, which is the marketer's margin, and there's the margin that is supposed to go for the distribution of the product. These are monies that the OMCs are supposed to collect for and on behalf of the authority. So it is not your money. It is the money that is supposed to be retired after it is collected. That's why we give you a grace period of about 45 days for you to do the retirement. So if you don't do it, you certainly have yourself to blame. It cannot and should actually not be part of the challenges that the oil marketing company could actually be facing. Well, like I put it from onset, it is not your money. You are collecting it on behalf of the authority. As and when you collect it, given a grace period, you are supposed to retire it. If you don't, the authority can only come after you for the money.
And well, I just want to bring up this point. We currently have more than 100 OMCs operating in the country. Does it make sense to cut down on the number, seeing the market is saturated?
This issue has come up several times, and my response to that is that if we have a deregulated system, we cannot come through the back door to want to cut the number in the name of having to reduce the number out there. We all agree that deregulation was the way to go. It is okay if we want to review it and probably be able to sanitize the system, but I'm not too sure this is appropriate way of doing it. It is just having to go after an OMC that has defaulted in a revenue that is supposed to accrue to the authority that has not come to us. And I'm not sure this is supposed to be a vehicle to really, as it were, go closing down the OMCs. As and when you are able to pay when we come for you, I would allow you to be in operation. So just pay the money and you'll be in business, that's all.
So help our audience understand what are the repercussions of the OMC's indebtedness to the NPA? How is the NPA affected by this?
Okay, so these are the margins that are built into the price build-up to cater for the fair and appropriate distribution of petroleum product across the length and breadth of this country. You know that we have depots dotted across the belts of this country. We have one in Upper East, we have one in Northern Region, we have one in Ashanti, we have one around the coast. And these are depots that actually are storage facilities for the product so that the transporters can pick them to the depots, and then for oil marketing companies then can pick it to their filling stations and sell to consumers. So if you're not able to collect all of these monies, what it means is that it is likely to hinder the distribution of the product across the length and breadth of this country. And the further you are away from the coast, where there is supposed to be the gateway of the product to the country, the problem, it could actually be to your access of the product. So it is actually very critical for the National Petroleum Authority to be able to collect it. And I must put it that, yes, the collection is done by us, but the management largely is run by the bulk oil storage and transport.
Okay.
So they do the allocation of the transportation of this. We only take the money and then help in settling the cost for it. But for that particular cost, it means that the customer who buys at the pump would have been buying plus that particular margin. And so this is an inbuilt mechanism that is supposed to lessen the impact and effect of the cost of the product on the consumer. So it is absolutely critical that we are able to collect this money. And the authority will certainly not let anything attend, but would go after the defaulting companies to get our money.
How soon should we expect action from the NPA? There's a notice to the effect that the NPA will initiate legal action against these companies. What would that entail? And I know that there was, at a point, a plan to name and shame these companies. How far have you gone with that?
Okay, so to be fair with them, you need to give them a certain a timeline, a benefit of the doubt to see what their actions would be. And so in the wisdom of the authority, we decided that let's give them a window of 14 days to respond to our query. If we don't hear from them after 14 days, we'll certainly be taking the next line of action. And we've indicated our resolve to use all means available to us, including the law court, to get the money from them.
And some news that we are monitoring this afternoon about some oil marketing companies having to be shut down because of the fact that they have compromised on the quality of fuel. And it's surprising some of the OMCs caught in this. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, okay, so actually it is under delivery. As part of the mandate of the National Petroleum Authority is to ensure that consumers, particularly at this time where the product is so high in cost out there, that consumers get a return on the money that they pay for the product. And so we actually don't relent on our monitoring processes. And as part of the monitoring process of the authority, this time around, more spearheaded by the Consumer Services Department of the authority, which basically is the complaints unit of the authority. We took some monitoring process to Western region, and temporarily, particularly where we visited a number of stations. And let me actually put it out there, majority of the stations that we visited were compliant and playing by the rules of the game. Just a couple that we found wanting, and we have actually taken the appropriate measures against them. As and when we find you guilty, particularly for under delivery, our protocol is to exercise our caution on the side of the consumer. And so immediately would close you down and trigger an investigative process that would inform us as to what exactly informs the under delivery. Then whatever punitive action that we're supposed to take or remedy that we should be bringing on board to arrest the under delivery so the customer is not shortchanged wouldn't be done. So it is a routine and regular exercise that we do, and that is what has actually helped us in uncovering this. It is just to tell the players in the industry that do your work and then you will be a friend. But if you do otherwise, we'll certainly be coming after you.
Quick question before I allow you to go. June inflation rate has triggered conversation about the price of fuel and calls for taxes on the price build-up to be reviewed. Is it something the MPA is considering seriously?
Oh, so taxes, like I've regularly put it out there, are not the mandate of the National Petroleum Authority. It's virtually about the ministry and parliament, and they make the decision as to what tax should be there, how much it should be. As and when a revision or decision is taken on that, and then the communication is sent to us, would adjust the formula. There's a certain pricing, petroleum pricing formula that we are supposed to be using in determining how the prices should be. So if the taxes that are supposed to be slapped onto the build-up are reviewed by Parliament and the communication of same is sent to us, would accordingly review the formula to reflect that, and then consumers would feel safe at the pump. But as we speak, there's no communication to us on that particular front, and I probably will not be able to be speaking to that at all.
All
I'm
right.
sorry.
Mohammed Abdul Kudus, Communications Manager of the MPA, I appreciate your time with us this afternoon. Well, let's move on to this other story. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana is expected to end its meetings on Friday and announce a new policy rate on Monday. Now, some analysts believe the central bank will increase the policy rate for the third consecutive time following the increase in inflation rate to almost 29.8% last week. One of such analysts is Assistant Professor of Economics at the Niagara University in New York, USA, Dr. Dennis Nsafwa. He joins us from New York this afternoon. And good morning to you from there, Dr. Nsafwa. You expect a further increase in the policy rate. Tell us why, and if you agree that is the right thing to do.
For having me. Yes, I actually believe that, honestly, there are two options on the table for the MPC as they begin their meeting. The first option is the obvious one, which is a policy rate hike, and there are genuine reasons for that. The first reason is inflation at 29.8% is just too high. So the Monetary Policy Committee, or the MPC, has to use the tools at their disposal to ensure that they can do something about this inflation rate. The second reason, which I find even more compelling, is the broad-based nature of the inflation rate. In last week's CPI report, the GSS, the Ghana Statistical Service, reported that food inflation was around 30.7%. Non-food inflation was as well 29.1%. Domestic produced goods inflation was 29.2%, and then imported goods inflation was around 31.3%. So if you look at these numbers, you can see that the inflation rate is coming from all sectors of the economy. So this is an indication that there is actually excess demand in the economy. If inflation begins to show evidence of persistence and broad-based nature like this, it's an evidence that there is excess demand in the economy. whenever there is an excess demand in the economy, the central bank has to use their tools to slow down demand so that supply can have time to catch up with the excess demand. So that is the first option that I think is available to the central bank. And it makes sense for them to actually hike policy rates by between 100 and 200 basis points. On the other hand, I don't think that is the only option available to them.
Right.
Depending on how they interpret the inflation data we saw last week. An inflation rate of 29.8% is high, all right? But the good thing is it is also in line with the staff of the Bank of Ghana's forecast. If you read the bank's monetary policy report, May 2022 monetary policy report, the staff of the Bank of Ghana actually expect inflation rate to peak to about 34% by the end of the year before falling to within target somewhere in 2024. So if the bank saw an inflation rate of 29.8, that is actually within their forecast. And it is possible that in their previous meeting where they hiked the policy rate by 200 basis points, they may have anticipated this current inflation in that policy rate. The second reason why they could maintain the policy rate and not hike it is if you consider the recent policy rate decisions from November 2021, you can see that the bank has increased the policy rate by 550 basis points from November till now.
Okay.
In the macroeconomics literature, most economists expect that it takes an average of 12 months for a monetary policy decision to be fully transmitted into the economy, right? From November till now, one can argue that all the policy rate hikes have not fully kicked into the economy. So there is still room for all those hikes to transmit and then anchor inflation around expectation.
Because that was going to be my that was going to be my next question to you. If the actions from the central bank have yielded any results, and I mean, for how long should we see the policy rate go up over time? And that's a major concern because the business community are having been affected by this, and it's sort of a bitter pill to swallow. So, I mean, for how long can this continue, really?
That's actually a good question. And honestly, I think it's the central bank who can answer that question very well. One of the things I see as a shortfall of our current central bank is they don't really give a forward guidance in terms of the path of the policy rate. And it's something I would encourage them to do in the next policy rate announcement. Give the public, communicate to the public the future path of the policy rate. In terms of the other side of the question, like I said earlier, one would expect that you would need about 12 months for previous hikes to fully transmit into the economy. So if you have done 550 basis points, and as a matter of fact, there is evidence that their previous decisions are having effect on the economy. If you look at the trend of inflation, last month's inflation rate of 29.8% was high, all right, but it was actually a disinflation.
Yeah, the rate was lower.
Was lower than what we have, the average of 4% we have seen this year. Okay. So, yeah, one could argue that their previous decisions are having an effect.
My final question, we have just 1 minute. You talked about inflation peaking. I sort of missed when you said we'd see the peak. Can you tell us when we will see inflation peak?
According to the staff of the Bank of Ghana, as much as I would like to take credit, it's not my way. They expect inflation to peak at 34% before the year ends.
Before the year ends?
Before the year ends. So before
but I'm interested in your personal projection. I mean, looking at things going. I mean, there are some analysts who have said we could even see 40% in August.
I tend to align with the staff of the Bank of Ghana. I think they are very credible and they do a good job. So I want to align with their projection. I believe that their projection is within accurate.
Dr. Dennis Nsafua, economics professor, assistant economics professor at the Niagara University. We will talk sometime soon. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, let's turn to the money market fund update. Head of Trading at Republic Securities, Patrick Edem Agama, is joining us via Zoom. What's news from the Treasury market, Edem?
Okay, good afternoon. On the auction held last week, the government raised a total of 1 billion Ghana cedis, exceeding its target for the fourth time by 16.79%. The 91-day Treasury bill inched up slightly to close at 25.96%, while the 182-day also went up by 91.39 basis points to close at 27.46%. Out of the total base accepted, 81.4% were the 91-day Treasury bill against 18.6% for the 182-day Treasury bill.
And on the secondary market, week-on-week face value of volumes traded decreased by 31%. What's the reason?
Well, these days we are seeing a lot of primary auctions, so investors are looking towards the primary auctions rather than the secondary market. So you can see funds leaving the secondary market.
And let's switch to the stock market. Our understanding is that there was a slowdown in trading activity in the previous weeks. What stocks are we watching this week?
Well, on the stock market, we can see there is still significant selling pressures on the market, where we see the market heavily on the sell side. So we expect some stocks to lose momentum over time. However, we expect increased activity in MTN, CAL, and Total.
And I know we've been talking a lot about the Treasury market, but I want us to turn our eyes to the cocoa bill issue and what we should expect. There's also the 3-year issue and the 5-year US dollar domestic bond tapping.
Yes, for this week, government is targeting 1.9 billion in the issuance of the 91-day, 182-day, and 364-day bills. However, we should also expect the issuance of a 3-year bond and then a tap-in for the 5-year domestic USD bond. Also, we expect on Thursday 1.7 billion Ghana cedis to be maturing in the cocoa bill. So we expect an issuance in order to retire the existing bill.
And you heard me talk to Dr. Dennis in Safwa about the MPC meeting, which is currently underway. We expect an announcement of the policy rate next week. We expect an increment, in fact. How would an increase in the policy rate further impact the markets?
Well, Daryl, so what we are seeing on the secondary market and even on the primary market is that securities have already been priced with this perception. Investors are aware of the trend of inflation. So if you look at the pricing data on the market, securities have already factored in this rise. What could be a shock is when the announcement is from the expectations of investors, where it becomes too low or it is maybe kept at the current rate or it becomes really high. That will definitely make the market respond very fast.
All right, Patrick Edem Agama, Head of Trading at Republic Securities, grateful you could join us. You're watching The Marketplace. In about 2 minutes, we'll be taking you to the University of Ghana Business School for the Joy Business Town Hall meeting, which gives students the opportunity to discuss the state of our economy. Ahead of the event, we have been speaking with finance lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Benjamin Amwa, who will also moderate the event, about how important it is for decision makers to engage the youth on matters concerning the economy.
We have all heard from politicians in relation to how the economy has been managed. For some, the economy has been managed well. For others, there's a lot more that can be done to turn the economy and to revive the economy. We've heard from CSOs. They have given us their views about what should be done as far as the economy is concerned. We have heard from researchers. We have heard from respectable men in the Ghanaian society. But there's one particular voice that we have not considered, and that is the voice of the youth. And we are starting the voice of the youth for the university campus. So we entreat all Ghanaians to make time to listen to the future leaders tomorrow, who will then come and express their views on how the resources of the state are being managed, what they make out of it, and then tell us the way forward in terms of how the public purse and issues relating to the economy should be handled. So it's an interesting program, and we expect that as many as can should join us, even as we give the youth a chance to voice out what they think is being done right and what, from their view, must be changed in order to get the economy on the right path. Right. Basically, they also say that the system is not that easy as it used to be, and I believe they are looking at it from resources that you used to have in the past, from maybe their parents and their guardians, that now it's not that easy to get. So from that perspective, once they don't get what they used to get in the past, then it means that something is wrong. And like, we shouldn't underrate the fact that they are young. Some of them are very much aware of what is happening in the society. So when they say it, you can see that what they are saying is a reflection of what is happening in the bigger society. And so we can't just downplay the fact that they are students. We need to also listen to them and then pick some of the useful lessons and information that they'll come up with. So we can also build this information and useful contributions into our planning and into our public sector financial management.
My name is Daryl. Kwawu. This is The Marketplace. We will be right back in a couple of minutes to link you to the University of Ghana Business School, where the maiden edition of the Joy Business Town Hall will be taking place. Do stay with us.